and you really must tune in. He's ironic, iconic, maybe bionic. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Genius. He's a genius.
Hello ladies and gents, I'm Michael Burhan.
I'm Oliver Hughes.
And we are reviewing GodFactory Wingman, published by 9 Studios, produced by Namco Bandai, and it's released on the 29th of August 2014, currently on its 4.01 update on Steam. Now, we had the chance to review this lovely game, went in cold, reason being we wanted to experience the game firsthand without seeing other reviews or getting anyone else's opinions on the game. So,
or even seeing what the game's about. Just went in straight up cold.
Yeah, and it was a very fun experience as well at the same time, because if you're looking at sort of a space kind of combat strategy game, that's exactly what you'll get from this. You know, the game itself kind of has a different different angle on space. You know, as you see, like the tons of space operas out there, like Star Wars, and I remember a game you referred it to a lot as, which was X-Men vs TIE Fighter, correct?
Yeah, well, that's the last good space fighter that I played. I mean, there have been others, but the type of game is basically a space fighter, and the main sort of objective is to destroy the other capital ship. So you've got a capital ship, they've got a capital ship, and you've got to destroy their other capital ship. And that's the main sort of emphasis.
It's kind of an internet-based, online-only based 4-player strategy, player versus player game, because you've got to think on your feet when you're going after these ships, and you can't just go in guns a-blazing in a sense, because we tried that and we got mullered.
Yeah, so let's talk about sort of the gameplay itself,
yes.
How we played it and how it felt and stuff like that. What was your sort of initial reaction on the gameplay?
The gameplay for me I found kind of exciting, because I'm not usually a PC gamer. You know, as I said previously in our Payday 2 review, I'm more focused on kind of console gameplay than anything else. But with this game, I kind of found it easy to kind of break into. You know, as long as you learn how to maneuver the ship, you figured out what was up, what was down, and you also had the button configuration placed in and made it more adaptive thanks to Ollie, so that we could actually fire like our lasers and also our bombs using certain keys. Now it's a simplistic sort of game in the sense itself, because of the fact that the gameplay mechanics allows you to easily maneuver and just go straight for your target. But you kind of had to think on your feet a little bit more, didn't you? Especially with the way that the keys were positioned, and also the way that you had to kind of quickly get through in order to focus your attacks on one part of the ships.
Yeah. I mean, the game itself, heavy tutorial. And that's purely because you need there's a good long tutorial for each section, like how to move from A to B, how to do this, how to do that,
how to fire like weaponry.
Yeah, because there is no single player campaign to learn.
Yeah.
You've got the tutorial, and you've got actual gameplay online against other people,
which isn't a bad thing. It's a pretty good thing in terms of,
I don't know, I like having at least I like having some sort of, not even a story, just even if it's a forced story, just to kind of get you through the thing. The one thing, literally, this is the lesson, this is a lesson, this is a lesson. Yeah,
it mirrors games like Titanfall, for instance, which doesn't really have like a single player campaign. It kind of says, this is what you do, this is how you do it, now get in there and mix it up. And it has a nice little combination to it for the price, especially that you're paying for the game as well. It's a very good big game, but as Ollie said, there is no story or structure or single player campaign in this game to kind of give you that extra little leverage. Thus, it does bring down the replay value a little bit more.
So I mean, stay on the gameplay. You're jumping too far ahead.
But it's, you know, the fact is, because it's easy to use, because it's easy to kind of jump in there and play, it does give you like rewards for doing such. So like, for instance, if you go through certain tutorials, you get rewarded with more money, so you can purchase extra parts and additional like abilities for your ships. Yeah. So it gives you a bit more leverage if you follow the instructions to T, in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's a good game. It's not like sort of your average space fighter where you have your ship. This is literally you have your ship and you can upgrade and change every part of it: the cockpit, the wings, the engines, the power source, the thrusters, the weapons. And you go into a shop and you buy different things. And it's not like you go in with all the money in the world, like, oh, I have £10 million and I want to buy the best engine.
You can't do that. You have to level
you're
up.
Tiered. You're only a first level captain, so you can only have first level items.
Yeah. So as you progress, like going from rookie and upwards, you can only progress as far as your rank will allow you to, and you have to keep winning in order to bring your rank up, and you have to keep learning. So it's a very nice sort of tactical game with strategy elements and RPG elements mixed in, so it gives you that extra little bit of leverage, so an extra kind of conviction to keep continuing. But you know, apart from that, it does get a bit too simplistic. Once you go over that learning curve, once you've beaten like the game a couple of times and you've played people and you've kind of known what's where, it does get a bit monotonous.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think, going back to the actual gameplay itself, from what I got of it, I mean, it might change at a higher level, but at the level we start at, it's only you're on your capital ship, you launch out of the hangar bay, and the idea is to take out the opposition's capital ship.
Yeah.
You can do it by attacking the hull directly, which then weakens the whole ship.
Yeah.
Or you can attack the main cannon, because each ship has a main cannon that fires back and forward. Or you can take out the radar dish. You can take out like extra ammo supplies, which I'm assuming slows down the cannon's firing.
Well, it's also, I think it slows down the ship actually reloading in terms of the ammo, because you have a limited amount of ammo and a limited amount of bombs.
Yeah, that annoyed me a lot. You would go out and you'd have 20-30 shots, quite high powerful thing, but you'd go out, you fire them, and then you have to go back, and you'd have to go back to your carrier and change ship.
But I think that's all part of the strategy though, because we kind of...
To a point, but you never stay in space then.
But we switched it up a little bit, because every time I was losing out, I kind of switched to you, and then you would continue it. But
that's only because we had that option.
Yeah, but we knew what we wanted to do, and we kind of made it a multiplayer, a local multiplayer by doing that. So he had one ship, I had the other, and every time one of us would lose like a substantial amount of bombs and ammo, we would then like reverse with the other one. I found, because of the class that I was using, and that's another thing about this game, because you could play classes like of humans, Agrigor race, and you had two other races as well that you could choose from. It gave you like certain abilities, like the humans, they could heal quicker, but they took a lot more damage than the Agrigors.
They were a very hit and run species. Their weapons are quite powerful, but the armor and the shields and
were terrible.
Yeah, but the engines are good, and the weapons are good.
It took me about 2 or 3 hits to my ship before I had to go back and dock again, otherwise I would have died. We even had to the point where you don't retain the same ship as well, which is another thing that we had with this, was every time that you would go and basically like have your ship destroyed, you had to then use a drone, which had less kind of ammo, less bombs, and would just be destroyed within 2 to 3, well, about less than that, wouldn't it? Like 1 or 2 hits.
Yeah, it all depends.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the point. I mean, let's go back to the actual what the game itself was, and what sort of objective. You start with there are 4 species to choose from,
yes,
and they're all very unique. Like we said, the humans are very hit and run.
Yeah.
Good weapons, good engines, rubbish shields. The Agoran?
I think it's Agoran. They were kind of like a Sherman tank in a sense.
Yeah, they're basically tank based, so weapons were alright, slow on the engines, but heavier shields.
Yes.
So they'd be able to take beatings. There was another class, species that specialised in area damage weapons, and it had mediocre shields, mediocre engines, and then the last one, I can't remember. But basically, at the beginning of the game, they asked us to choose 2 species, and you get a starting ship from each one. So we chose the humans for the hit and run, and the Agorim for having a bit of a tank. So we had no idea what we were doing with it.
Yeah. But that's where it kind of leads onto the learning curve, though, because it took us through the tutorial sections to kind of build ourselves up and learn how to play the game. Whereas differently, with some games you can kind of step right into it. With this one, you couldn't. You had to learn what you were doing before doing it, because if you threw yourself into there, you would have been destroyed.
Yeah, there's no. We did the basic tutorial. Just we wanted to.
We wanted to show the mechanics at work using the short play.
Yeah, so we did the movement to get the controls. We did a bit of combat training. We done about a third of the training altogether.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all we really needed to know. There were probably some more advanced tactics that we could have picked up.
Yeah. But it was kind of one of those things where it would reward you if you continued, and if we were playing leisurely, we probably would have continued just to get those extra points so we could upgrade the ship.
That's what I mean. At the beginning, after a couple of battles, because we lost our first couple of battles, because we were playing against other people and they absolutely destroyed us. We had thousands and thousands of credits. At one point we had like nearly 4,000 credits.
Yeah.
But we couldn't buy anything new because all of the level 1 stuff we owned, because that's what is part of the level 1 ship. So until we win a match, you just keep gaining money. You keep gaining money, but you don't gain experience.
Yeah, because your rank wouldn't increase, because every time we clicked on something it would say low level rank. So we weren't able to actually build anything up, including an ammunition cache or anything above what we could have for our rank. Thus, it wouldn't give us any competitive edge. And anybody who's played the game longer than we have, pretty similar to what happens in MMOs, would just destroy us. It wasn't a fair fight. But it doesn't have to be, in a sense. You just have to keep playing privately in order to build yourself up. But we did find a workaround.
I found a little trick that you can obviously create a game. Because when we started, we went, we'll just join a game. So we joined a random game. It was us and one other person. And the other person went, there's not going to be anyone else playing. Let's throw in 6 bots. Because there's or 6 teams of bots. Because you get 2 ships per team. And yeah, honestly, that threw me that a game this early would have only one other person, maybe 2 other people online, which is a little bit dubious. But what we worked out is if we create our own game and make it private, we can make all of the enemies bots and just train against them. So we're not getting anyone. So you can still win that way. It's a little bit of a cheat. But it's the only way we found, because we were just getting demolished over and over again. Yeah,
it got to the point where we would spend probably nearly an hour on a match trying to take down a little bit of life, and then we'd get destroyed.
Yeah,
we'd get credits
because they'd fly back to their thing and get repaired. So,
which we kind of didn't know. We didn't know about docking because we didn't go that far. Now, in terms of the learning curve, once you kind of get the experience in, you kind of figure out it like a science. You get the science. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, you basically once you kind of get the mechanics and get the way of upgrading your ship to the way you want it.
Yeah.
So if you want a heavy hitting ship that does massive damages to like the cruiser, you can do that. You have mines, you have bombs, you have like really hard hitting primary shots, but you have few of them. You have to go back and dock. If you want rapid fire lock on targets, you can do that. And basically defend your ship against other from attackers.
Yeah, and and that was the thing. It's kind of, as long as you know what you're doing and you've got the tactics down to the way that you want to play. Some people may play differently from you, so you can always adapt in terms of the way that they play, but it kind of becomes monotonous in a sense, because you figured out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and once you've leveled up to a certain point, you can probably take down ships within about 15 to 20 minutes of play.
Yeah.
Depending on how the other person plays.
Yeah, the whole idea is no matter how good you are, if your opponent's just as good, they stop you, and then you can stop them, and it's vice versa. It's any multiplayer game. But that's the point in the learning curve. The learning curve is one game type. Once we worked out what the game type was, we started winning. It wasn't our first match. We were just going around shooting down the fighters. We didn't know why. We were just like, oh, shoot down the fighters. Maybe it's a death match. No, it's not. And then our ship blew up. So what's going on there? Our cruiser.
So let's go to the kind of the length of play now. Going on that. What do you feel that the length of play is in this game? Because for me, I think because I kind of don't play games like this very often. I'm more the type of guy who likes kind of an expansive game, something with more story, more structure to it. I can only see someone be playing this for like 6 hours the most, maybe 6 to 10 hours, depending, without DLC. Because I know it's probably one of those games that may get DLC to expand it a little bit more, to expand some of the gameplay, some of the assets. It looks like one of those games that's going to have a continuous kind of update to it. In a sense, because there's only so much you can do, and because of that you may get bored very quickly, depending on if you want to kind of be a completionist or not. Upgrade your ship to a level where you're at the kind of the high level to earner, in a sense, the one that can win battles, that's at the highest rank that they can be. And when stuff like that happens, it does get boring because you can just defeat everybody. So I give it basically about 6 hours of playtime, and then I would get bored. But that's kind of on me in a sense, because I don't see myself playing these games rather as much. But
replay value for you.
Replay value is dependent on DLC and expansions on the game, but in its current form, I don't see much. If a friend wants to jump on and say, hey, do you want to have a quick game? I need your support on this, I probably would. But in terms of myself, I wouldn't see myself picking this up again.
I mean, going with actual length of play. The tutorial takes a long time. Outside the tutorial, it all depends on how many other people there are playing online. If it's like what we were like, with one or two other people, you've got maybe an hour or two. It's just because the battle. I mean, do you know what? I do it by battles, because the game time is irrelevant, because battles can take anywhere between 20 minutes and an hour.
It does take a long time depending on how the other person progresses.
You got maybe 10 or 12 battles before you start. You start upgrading. If you don't start winning, you won't upgrade, and the game will become very tedious very quickly. If you do start winning, you'll sort of start upgrading. That will increase the life, because you want the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, as all of these sorts of games work. But unless you find people online to play with, you're just playing against bots all the time, which is okay, but doesn't really. It's not a pick up and play game. It's I don't really want to play that, because there's nothing really to it. It's just fighting bots. So I really wouldn't give it a time frame. It all depends. If you can get some friends on there and go on, like for instance, a game like League of Legends.
Yes, I'd say yes and no. I consider
League of Legends is a really, unless you get friends on there and people it probably has a very short lifespan, because if you're losing over and over again. It's the type of game where you can get people on there. People can make it a regular occurrence. You can do an hour a game every day. If you get your friends on at a certain time, play an hour, you can play it forever.
I could see it as kind of an online party game. It's one of those games where you could actually go online with your friends and have a laugh playing it. I don't see it as a game where you all could farm together.
I don't think it's a party game. It's too serious. There's too many tactics, and in a party game, if someone makes mistakes, okay, it's a mistake. It can be forgiven. In this, if someone makes a mistake, then you lose the match, and no one gets any experience. So, I wouldn't say it's a party game. It's a game for hardcore kind of. We need to get together. like WoW. We need to get together and raid this dungeon. If like the healer in WoW fails, the whole group dies. No one gets anything. In this, because there's no healer, but if the person who's a tank and doesn't take the shots they were meant to, or the hit and run person doesn't blow up the cannon that's targeting people, it's very, I wouldn't say party game, because that implies you can make mistakes, you can have a laugh.
I think you could, but that's probably on my old.
But that's very casual. This game doesn't feel like a casual gaming.
It seems casual to me because it doesn't have any expansions at the moment, so let's see how that works.
Expansions are irrelevant.
Well, World of Warcraft, it always gets expansions to keep it fresh.
Yeah, but that's just because it's been so long. Cause it's been out for years and years.
Yeah.
But the initial game had its hardcore fans. It wasn't a party game in the sense that Nintendo party games.
Well, it was more of a strategy real-time RPG. Previously, before it became an online MMO.
Yeah, it's like a clan game rather than party. But that's what this would be. It would be, you create a faction, you create a clan of people you know, or you meet people you've met in the game, and you progress that way. You wouldn't. There's no progression because there's nothing else in the game apart from the destroy the other ship or defend your ship. So replay value, unless you've got other people, it's got none. Time frame, not long, and again, unless you find people. If you do, infinite replay value, infinite thing. It's a lot of fun. Sound
and audio. What do you think of the sound and basically the the audio in the game? How you feel that worked? Because we talked about the graphics a little bit and how we felt that the graphics was kind of beautifully done. It had a very nice little expansive universe.
But we'll go on to graphics in a minute. We'll talk about like the sound and the audio and how it works. The sound and the audio are very simple. As most space fighters. I
felt it was kind of beautiful as well. Added to the kind of feel.
There's no dialogue in it. Yeah. So there's no one speaking. You never hear any people talking. The sound's crisp. There's no kind of lag. It works. It feels like a space fighter. So I wouldn't say there's anything special about it, but
as with most like online only games, you find that with sound, with visuals, it does kind of tend to lag. We were playing quite recently, and we had an issue where I don't know if it was the connection on our side or if it was the servers, because they had server maintenance coming up. It lagged to the point where things started moving slowly. Our craft kind of jump cutted to kind of different areas.
There's like a lot of maintenance.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and the sound was kind of
most games that are online only sacrifice audio and visual to maximise gameplay.
Yeah, I don't think this one did.
This one hasn't really.
Yeah,
but graphics-wise, it's beautiful. You can change your ship, so you can change each individual part, and you actually see the changes. So if you change the cockpit, it actually does change the cockpit, so your ship changes slightly. You can rotate your ship. You can kind of look at all the different parts while it's flying. There's all the different parts move independently. It looks really good. They put a lot of effort into the models.
Yeah, it looks crisp as well. Very, very crisp, like very fluid in terms of the way that the crafts move. The universe around it, very expansive in a sense, and you've got these beautiful, like godly archetypes that are there.
Yeah, just like huge statues, like 1,000-mile high statues of like a god, just floating there, kind of. You don't know what the story is behind that. Was it like an ancient race who kind of built this thing to worship, or is it something that's just watching this battle?
Yeah, and it's a great thing to see. The designs are amazing in terms of the ship, and every ship has its own unique design as well.
Yeah, each weapon has its own very unique firing style. Certain things that are just straight up firing missiles. Some are like multiple kind of things that go like this, and each thing is very unique and they look good. There was no
very visually stimulating, especially for one of those independent games on Steam, because it did come on through Steam's Greenlight, and the fact that it's being published by a big publisher like Namco Bandai does kind of give it that extra edge as well. So it was, I think the extra funding probably was used to kind of kick the game up into another gear.
Yeah.
Now that leaves us onto value for money. In terms of the price tag at the moment, it stands at £14.99 on Steam. Would you say that's worth the money that it's going for?
$14.99, no. It's... Yes, it looks good. Yes, it plays well. But one game type and online only, with not many people, no. It feels like it's a side game. It's not a game in itself because it doesn't have enough. Yeah, it may in the future, but I'm not paying for £15 now.
But it probably then will change the pay for play, wouldn't it? If they did that, because the more they update the game, the more it's going to turn into that kind of model. Because the reason why games like Warcraft are so successful,
because it's pay to play. Yeah, but that's what I mean. I'm not going to judge it as a pay to play. I'm judging it as a straight up. And no, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel maybe £6-7 I'd pay, not 15. That's it's not. I don't think it's worth the money. Good game, but yeah, just not worth the money.
Yeah, for me, I like to have my games physical because it's a Steam only game. It looks nice. It's beautiful in terms of the graphics. $14.99. I kind of would say that if Namco Bandai throws in free DLC onto the game on top of it, I would say yes.
You don't know that, what would you say now?
Yeah, as it currently stands, no. I think they would have to lower it to maybe £7, £7 to £10.
What about if they gave you a physical copy? If you had a physical disc that you could play?
They'll still need to add a single player campaign. And that's my biggest issue with this game, is that it doesn't have one. Because not everyone wants to play with their friends online.
But if they dropped it to £7, would you forgive them for that?
Yeah, I could.
Okay, so...
and if they kept expanding on the game with DLC, then I would forgive them for it, because it would add to like the replay value.
Yeah.
Now that brings us forward to the final score. What do you think?
Kind of covering all of the different categories of kind of gameplay, graphics, audio, replay value, and obviously value for money. Yeah, I'd give it 4 out of 10. It's an okay game. It's a space fighter game, but to be honest, you think of it, it handles very well. But like I said before, X-Wing vs TIE Fighter back in like early 2000s, or whatever it was, handled beautifully.
But that had an established story and plot to run with it.
I know, but ignore that. I'm talking about just the actual how the ships handled and how they manoeuvred. This is very well, but it's not built upon it. It's not created anything new. So the actual feel of the ship and the way it moves isn't anything special.
Okay.
The graphics aren't that alright, but nothing special. It's limited just to 2 ships. That's easy. It's a sandbox. You just build the models. You can make that look as good as you want. So yeah, it's below average, and definitely for the price, I'd say 4. What about you?
I'd give it basically a 5 out of 10, and the reason being is I like what they build upon. I want to see more, but hopefully it gets to the point where they add a few more layers to this game. Because as far as I'm concerned, because it was made by an indie studio as well, you're not going to expect the same quality as like big name studios like Capcom, like Namco Bandai, for instance, who published the game. You're going to be looking at the quality of what an indie studio can provide. So from what it is, for what the game is currently in its current form, I would give it a 5 out of 10, because it is enjoyable. It is something you could play with friends, but beyond that, there's not really much else there for you to do.
Okay, and your final thoughts on the game. Sum the game up, everything about it in one sentence, in one line.
One line. I think I'd basically sum it up as player versus player. Pretty much it.
Okay, I'd say, yeah, mediocre space fighter.
So there you go, guys. You know, we've basically given our thoughts and opinions on this, and just remember, these are our thoughts and opinions, our experiences on this game. If you want to look at more gameplay and how we've experienced with the game, check out our short plays, because they're the best place to kind of like see how we've experienced the game,
why we've come to certain things.
why we've come to our decisions, and it helps us it helps it build upon the review itself. And if you agree, if you disagree, leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. And as always, guys, I'm Michael Burhan, he's Oliver Hughes, saying that we've got gameplay.
Have you?
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
2, 1, 0.